Welcome back to the next chapter of the book, The Science of the Mind Management, written by Swami Mukundananda. The name of the chapter is The Power of Habits. Before going further, ask yourself, what is a habit? What is a habit? Simply put, it is a person's customary way of thinking or behaving. Habitual behavior is natural or automatic and does not demand self analysis. For better or for worse, habits became a part of who we are. Habit is a part of who we are and constitute an intrinsic aspect of our personality. Let us take an example. For example, those who are habituated to drinking bad tea find it difficult to get out of bed without their morning cup. Those who are accustomed to a game of tennis after office feel uneasy on rainy days when they cannot play. Those who have the habit of drinking wine with their meal cannot swallow their dinner without it. And those who are used to uplifting their mind through daily sadhana or spiritual practice feel uncomfortable if they miss it even a single day. Let us move on to the next topic, the power of conditioning. In India's Gajapati district of southern Odisha is an area at the base of Mahendragiri hills where elephants are trained. I once visited Mahendragiri and found a row of elephants roped to wooden stakes dug into the earth. I asked the Mahout, elephant caretaker, in Telugu it is called Mauti, about the secret of elephant's docility. The Mahout explained, Swamiji, when the elephant is a baby, it is tied with ropes to a stake. Initially, it is not used to being secured, so it pulls and pulls. So, since it is weak and the rope is strong, it keeps tugging in vain till a day comes when it realizes that no tugging will help. Then it stops and stands still. Now it is conditioned. Later, when it becomes a huge and mighty adult tusker, it is still tied with the rope to the stake. With one tug, it could walk away to freedom, but it goes nowhere because it has been conditioned. We humans too tend to behave according to our habitual conditioning. We act through the force of habit as our mind is conditioned. As humans, we are free to choose differently, but rarely do we consider the available alternatives. Let us see one beautiful picture. The bus. Damn it, I was supposed to work from home today, is the one condition that you get when bus is not coming. Our everyday attitudes also come from mental conditioning. If we have habituated our mind to see the positive sides of things, we are likely to remain cheerful and optimistic even when difficult situations arise. If we have accustomed our mind to doubt or to see the worst in others, we will habitually suspect even their best intentioned actions. Even though they are doing good, you feel like something is wrong. Similarly, the thoughts of generosity, empathy, fear, and envy also came to us from habitual thought patterns. First, we mold our habits, and later, our habits mold us. Why do habits grip us so powerfully? This is because of the way in which the brain has been hardwired. Let us understand how in the next concept. The concept is the neuroplastic nature of the brain. The science of neurology says that the human brain is endowed with 100 billion neurons. These combine with each other to form trillions of neural circuits. You know circuits, right? In the electronics department, there will be a circuit. In the same way, in our brain, there are trillions of neural networks, neural circuits. Every thought pattern we generate within our mind uses neural connections. When we repeatedly harbor a pattern of thoughts, their neural circuit becomes etched in the brain. This phenomena is called neuroplasticity, is, which is nothing but the ability of the mind to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections in response to situations or changes in the environment. The consequence of neuroplasticity is that when a neural circuit becomes intensely engraved in the brain, the corresponding thought pattern comes more easily to the mind, thereby conditioning it. The first to postulate the impact of habituation on human and animal behavior was Ivan Pavlov, the famous Russian physiologist who won the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 1904. You may have heard of his famous experiments with dogs. Pavlov's research paved the way for the classical conditioning theory. He initially began his study, to gather information on the digestive system of dogs. With the help of his laboratory assistants, he documented the amount dogs would salivate. Since mammals produce saliva in the mouth that helps break down food, the lab assistants who fed the dog would wear white coat, like white aprons. However, Pavlov soon noticed that even without being presented with food, the dogs began drooling simply on seeing the white coat assistants. He then conducted a study in which he rang a bell every time he fed the dogs. Soon, just ringing of the bell made the dogs salivate. The dogs had learned to associate the bell with the food, and as a result, ringing the bell evoked the same response as the food itself. This led to theory of the classical conditioning, which shed a new light on human behavior. Psychologists now understood how thought patterns get etched in neural pathways in the brain. How can we leverage this nature of neuroplasticity to our benefit? So you know neuro of plasticity theory, right? So how do you get benefit from this? This requires us to first understand the process of habit formation. Let us understand the process of habit formation. The physiology of habit formation. Whenever we decide to do any physical or mental work, our brain fires neurons in different regions, including the sensory motor region, which is nothing but neocortex, and the prefrontal lobes. But the beauty is that the brain has a self programming ability. When it sees some activity being repeated, it creates shortcuts of the neural sequences and stores them in the basal ganglia, the part of the brain responsible for learning, habits, and emotion. What is the part? Basal ganglia. This is the part in our brain which is helping for learning as well as habits and emotions. This enables the brain to engage in those activities with greater ease in the future. Habit formation is thus the brain's way of simplifying its work and making it more efficient. For example, the first time we begin typing, imagine first time you are started typing, our brain had to exert itself to the maximum to identify and press the required keys. Consequently, it took us a few minutes to type a handful of words. However, as we continued typing, the brain began programming itself. The moment we thought of a letter, our finger would fly on the keyboard to press that corresponding key. The brain had created programs for the neural sequences to be fired for the tasks. With repeated practice, the brain began forming programs for entire words, enabling the keys to be pressed in multiple sequences. As a result, after a year of training, we were typing at speeds of 50 words a minute and above. You can simply type any word without seeing the letters also. That's how you improve it. Without such a self programming ability, typing would have been as laborious as it was on the first day. Then we would be unable to think of anything else while typing. Fortunately, the power of habit simplifies the brain's work, and also with typing, and we are able to think, imagine, and plan. Similarly, we multitask while we drive, either bike or car. We speak to passengers, we listen to audio talks, we can and plan the rest of our day. However, on the first day of driving, the tasks of simultaneously controlling the steering, accelerator, and brakes are so formidable that they take up all our attention. With continued practice, the brain keeps programming itself, creating habits out of these tasks. Finally, the day comes when we can simultaneously drive and engage in a spirited conversation without risk. By creating habitual programs, the brain gets its work done while expending much less energy. A study was conducted to observe cerebral activity in rats. There was a research or experiment conducted on rats. Let us see what they have found. The rats were left in a maze and at a distance from a chunk of cheese. They slowly sniffed their way to it. As the experiment was repeated, their brain began learning the pathways and they progressed more quickly to the cheese. After a month on being left in the maze, they could run towards the cheese. The instruments on their head showed that brain activity progressively reduced as the learning occurred. Here is a habit loop. You may have heard about it earlier. Let us start it again. A habit has three parts to it. One is stimulus, second part is response, and third part is reward. The stimulus works like a trigger for the brain, which then responds with the conditioned behavior. That behavior generates a reward which further reinforces the pattern for the future. Let us take an example again. For example, if for a month while watching TV you drank tea regularly, it would grow into a habit. Now, whenever you sit before the TV, it acts as a trigger, the stimulation. The brain responds by creating the desire for tea. And when you drink the tea, the sensual gratification is the reward that reinforces the habit loop. The brain is so smart that it does not need any external reward for reinforcement. It generates the feel good chemicals called serotonin, endorphin, and dopamine and sends them to the part of the brain that was engaged in the activity. These chemicals create the feel good sensation, which is the reward. Let us take another example. Consider another example. Suppose that working on your assignment is drudgery for the brain, which seeks some diversion. When you hear the chime of a new email, you go to your inbox and check it. This provides a welcome distraction from work. When you are focusedly working, the getting new email is a welcome distraction. The brain gets relief from the present drudgery and a slight pleasure from the content of the email. Plus, the feel good chemicals created by the brain reinforce the habit loop. Now, every time the email bell rings, the mind generates an irresistible desire for reading it, which is hard to overcome. It has become a habit. The patterns of habits become so strong that people find themselves helpless in changing them. Studies have shown that habits remain even after surgery is done on the brains of alcoholics. On the appearance of old cues, the cravings for rewards manifest again, waiting to exert their power on the mind. Cues are triggers for habitual behavior can be of infinite variety. A picture of a ice cream, a certain place, a certain time of the day, the company, or a particular person. The routines that trigger can be a mere emotion that comes for milliseconds or a complex sequence of behaviors. The rewards vary: emotional payoff, chemical gratification, sensual pleasure, mental stimulation, or any combination of these. Habits often enter our lives without our conscious permission, but they grow so strong that they shape our destiny far more than we realize. They cause our brain to latch onto them to the exclusion of all else, including common sense. In this way, habits can be compared to a cable wire. Cable you might have seen, right? Each day we wave a thread of the cable. The singular thread seems too weak to hold us. However, when woven together, when twisted together of multiple threads, it will become the cable, which is almost unbreakable. But the good news is that habits can be changed. Social researchers conducted studies to understand why families increased their fast food consumption when a fast food outlet moved into their neighborhood. They found that advertisements, pictures, queue billboards, and other allurements successfully created cues for triggering the habit loop for eating French fries. The pleasurable taste of fat, salt, and crispy fries provided the natural reward. Inadvertently, customer behavior was influenced to the extent that some of the families began thinking taking their daily dinner at the fast food joint. When the outlet moved out of the neighborhood, the family habit slowly began changing. They started having food at home more often. Within a year, the habit had fully subsided. The conclusion was that habits are changeable. Habits are changeable. You can change any habit. The brain's quality of neuroplasticity works like a two-edged sword. It will have two-edged sword. On the negative side, programs and shackles our thinking in deleterious thought patterns. On the positive side, it provides an opportunity to reshape the brain, disband old habits, and install new ones. Thus, habits can be learned and unlearned. The potential is immense. We will see the next concept, good habits and bad habits, in the next episode. Until then, what you have understand about habits, share in the comments. Keep learning and stay connected.